Hi, Dr. Scott Jensen here. Remember this old ad?
Yes, we know it's a big fluffy
Talk
bun.
to the manager.
It is the manager.
Where's the beef?
He's putting us under the supervisor.
If you ask me, which you didn't, we should call the owner.
At Wendy's, the hamburger we modestly call a single has more beef than the Big Mac or Whopper.
We've got the owner.
Hello? Where's the beef?
Wendy's kind of people never ask, where's the beef?
I don't think there's anybody there. I really don't.
Yeah, where's the beef? I want to share with you where my beef is at. Recent article, Star Tribune, had this to say regarding the status of COVID in Minnesota. It says, hospitals remain busy, but with some capacity. COVID-19 cases filled inpatient beds on Tuesday at the level of 399 patients. 7,898 inpatient beds were occupied overall. At their busiest in November of 2020, Minnesota hospitals reported 8,500 beds in use. To me, that is just gobbledygook. Let me tell you the real facts. Okay, we basically have reported at this point in time, within the last couple of weeks, that there were 400 patients in the hospital that had COVID-19. But we do not know if they were in those hospital beds because of COVID-19. That's fact number one. Number two, what you should know is that Minnesota has approximately 12,000 hospital beds. You should also know that hospital administrators generally want to operate in the black, not the red. And the way you operate in the black is you look at your hospital somewhat like a hotel. And nobody wants to run a hotel at 50% occupancy. You want to run at 90%. So when a news media comes out and says they're 94% full and they have very little margin for other patients, that's exactly the way they want it. I have worked in emergency rooms for years. And one of the first things that would happen frequently when I walk in to cover the emergency room for a 12-hour shift was the charge nurse would come to me and he or she would tell me, Dr. Jensen, we're on divert. That means we don't have any room in the inn. We're moving those ambulances that have to have a heart attack. We're going to stabilize and move them on. Or I'm going to call some of my colleagues and say, could we move your patient to another level? Can we discharge your patient at 8 o'clock tonight if the patient's doing well and has no fever? We were told how many beds were available. This is not unusual. I just don't think we've been getting very good reporting on the real status. I meet and call hospital administrators with some frequency. How many ICU beds do you think we have in this state? Well, I can tell you right now, we have somewhere around 1,300. So we got 10,000, 12,000 beds, 1,300 of those are ICU beds. But when I was in the Senate in 2020, we were told by various authorities with the Minnesota Department of Health that they could push that number up. They wanted money, resources, and opportunity, and we provided that. I was told by some members of the Department of Health that they could get the number of ICU beds to 2,000 to 3,000. I think that the kind of reporting that we've seen is absolutely sloppy. If I took care of my patients with the same lack of precision that journalists have brought to the table with this, I'd have an awful lot of people dying unnecessarily. That's my beef. They said this, seasonal influenza diminished during the first 2 years of the pandemic, either because it was crowded out by the coronavirus or because mask wearing and other prevention measures reduced its spread. Bull crap. That's not why it was. We quit looking. I was there. If you don't look for something, you're not going to find it. Quite frankly, the whole thing about the perfect storm this year with this triad of RSV and COVID and influenza, that didn't transpire. You have been fed sloppy journalism for 3 years.
Where's the beef?
That's my beef. It says in this article, COVID-19 vaccination activity has stagnated in Minnesota, where 26% of people over the age of 5 are up to date with recommended doses or boosters. Get that? 26%. What that means is 3/4 of Minnesotans have said, no thanks, I'm not going to keep up with this. I'm not buying what you're selling. They got a beef also. Then it goes on to say, while 94% of vulnerable seniors have received at least one dose, only 62% are up to date. Well, let me give you the clinical view. I've had more than 90% of my patients over the age of 70 vaccinated with the first 2 shots. And on their own, my patients have stopped taking the boosters. Over and over, day in, day out, week in, week out. They come in and they sort of apologize and say, Dr. Jensen, I just don't feel good about taking any more. And you know what's also happened? They said, oh, by the way, that shingle shot I was thinking of taking, I'm going to hold off. And I say, well, what about the tetanus and diphtheria that you're behind on? Now I'm going to hold off. We have absolutely undermined our overall vaccination program. That's my beef.